So Mike, before we went live, I was telling you a little bit about this stealth real estate startup that I'm working on in the sustainability space, in the commercial real estate space. I know that your biggest passion point right now is talking about getting more people in commercial real estate and in real estate in general to do work in the climate space. And so can you tell me exactly why that's interesting to you right now, how you envision getting more people to think about working in that space, maybe what you're doing about it, for my own interest and for everyone listening. I think it'd be really interesting to start there.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jared. And I got to tell you, man, I'm so excited the fact that you're coming into our sector in a meaningful way, because I'm a big fan of everything that you've been doing. And I feel like, we've reached the tipping point now that Jared's like paying attention to real estate in a meaningful way. So we need more innovation. We need more thought leaders from outside the industry to kind of shake things up. I feel like, honestly, we're about to enter like a golden age of real estate worldwide. There's just so many forces at work that are impacting the nature of work, shopping, traveling, living, and technology is going to be the underpinning of all of it. And I think we're going to be witnessing such extraordinary innovation over the next 5-10 years. So we need leaders like you to come on in and shake it all up and rethink everything. Now's the time. Because the existing stakeholders of real estate are also going through these existential discussions of what is the purpose of all of these forms and functions, which is what you're doing, which is what I'm super excited about. So for us, quickly, I've been in commercial real estate my whole career, 35 years or so, and really just had sort of like an awakening over the last year or so about, and maybe the pandemic's great reset for people like me who were not, spending all this time commuting and traveling, enabled me to realize that we as an industry are contributing 40% of all carbon emissions worldwide, real estate. We've got to do something about that. So I'm going to do something about that. So we're launching a new site called CRETech Climate, which is just an offshoot of our existing site, CRETech, and it's all going to be focused on getting the commercial real estate industry, the real estate industry at large, all food groups to really own up to their responsibility and opportunity of addressing climate, sustainability, ESG, et cetera. So we'll have that, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll launch that.
Yeah, and you've, as you said, been in commercial real estate for 30 plus years. You had your own public relations firm for a while before that, which you grew and sold, and you were probably one of the first individuals in this modern era, like post Mad Men, to have a firm in your name that you grew and sold. What was that experience like to have Beckerman PR? Grow that firm over 20 plus years, sell it, and then come into all these new ventures that you've created in the past decade or so with the news funnel, with, CRETech, the events that you run.
I don't know that I'm, I know, your community and the people that you roll with, are so much more accomplished than I am. So I'm flattered to spend some time with you. But, for me, it was less about like a financial decision as it was an emotional and spiritual one, where I just felt like I had, pushed my talents as far as they could possibly go. And I just had lost the passion for what I was doing. And I just wound up in a meeting one day. I just felt really disconnected from the product that I was focused on, which was media. And I just didn't believe in it anymore in terms of PR. For me personally, not the sector as a whole. I just felt like it had run the course for me. And I was just looking for the next blank canvas. So that really was what motivated me at that stage in my life, when I was probably in my late 40s, just saying, I've been doing this since I was in my early 20s. I've been there, done that. And let's take a risk and see what else we can find out there. And, I seem to gravitate towards what's hard and challenging and difficult for me, which is like everything. And particularly it was technology. So really wasn't a tech ecosystem in real estate. And I just wanted to go out and build it. And that's what I've been focused on.
And how did you think about building that ecosystem? Because as someone who's built their entire personal brand on being a super connector and networking, relationship building,
Man.
community building, I'm really curious to know how you thought about actually structuring that community, building those initial platforms for people to share their ideas, because now it's much farther along than when you started building this community. So how did you think about seeding it, growing it?
I just copied your playbook.
I wasn't even around when you said. I was
feel
a
old.
teenager
Yeah,
when
you
you
were
started
like,
CRETech.
oh, well, I see. You were in high school or whatever. I get it. Okay. Uh, old school blocking and tackling. I love networking to probably the detriment of productivity. I take every call, respond to every message on LinkedIn and other places, and I just like connecting people and finding the threads, just like you do, just like we're doing now. So it was like, well, what are the constituent groups in real estate tech, right? So if I just focused on the startups themselves, when we're talking to each other, we're not building anything. There's no real momentum, and we're not moving the needle. So it was like, okay, well, the three real main constituent groups are the technology companies themselves, startups, the venture side, which is, as you know, you're close to it, so critically important to support the ecosystem, to fund all the startups and what have you, to be the advocates and the thought leaders. And then it was the corporates, it was the end users, it was the customers, it was the clients. So it just started a, very small tent, and then the tent just expanded, and then you get to the point where it's viral and it's people are coming to you. But I'm still doing much of what I did, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Simple. It's not very complicated, but you got to be accessible. And I think the other thought for me is like less about like what I know and being a place to let others broadcast what they know, right? Because I don't, I'm old. I'm not that smart. I didn't finish college. Like my bandwidth mentally is very, very limited. So how do we create a place where others are broadcasting? And that's what I'm passionate about.
For what it's worth, I never went to college, so I don't think college means much these days. So, how do you spend your time these days? Obviously networking, but are you spending 80% of your time with CRETech, or 50% of your time there and 20% on the climate, spinoff? How do you break down your time in all these ventures?
All the above. I mean, I'm pretty disciplined about like my day, and it's always been that way. I have the same habits that I did when I was in my 20s, which is like, I always start every day with like sort of knowledge consumption. So I'll spend the first hour of every day, like you and I were talking, consuming content that's relevant to me and that I can learn from. So I have my go-to publications like the Times and the Journal and Bloomberg, and then I go through my trade publications really quickly, and then I'll go through the specific verticals that I'm interested in, climate. So that's every morning without fail, and I'll spend a little bit at the end of the day doing that as well, just seeing what transpired. I've got a great team, and so we're focused on CRETech. We launched like a streaming product called CRETech Plus, which I'm super excited about because I just felt that the world of virtual conferences is not sustainable. And again, like you and I were talking about, when the physical does come back, and it will come back, it's going to be different though. It's not going to be the same thing. Like our last conference was in Brooklyn. We had over 2,000 people there. It was extraordinary. It's not just about COVID. I think it's just that people are looking for a different experience. Plug Jared. And so we said, well, let's take all this content that we're creating virtually, and let's just put that on a streaming platform that people can digest it when they're ready. So the team's focused on that. Super, super, super excited. And then I'm focused a lot on climate, but it's like day one for me for climate, Jared, where I'm just connecting every day to people that I from building a community from scratch for me. So that's a lot of my day.
And on the climate side of things, what are your go-to educational sources right now for that first hour of the day where you're educating yourself? Where are you turning right now?
Yeah, that's a great one. I'm still looking. I I probably got about 10 news sources on my iPad that I've bookmarked that I just go to every day. So it's the Bloombergs of the world. It's big media, but then there's also a lot of vertical media. It's a lot of good content on social. There's a lot of incredible advocacy groups that, friends of mine like Lindsay Baker and others, former co-founder of Comfy, that's now just an incredible global thought leader on climate. They'll educate me about different associations, think tanks that I follow, and then a lot of video content too, like Fifth Wall, who's our partner on CRETech Climate, our founding sponsor. They put out a great video series called Fly on the Wall, and I just consume a lot of that stuff as well. So the CRETech Climate, we're trying to mobilize the real estate industry, but obviously it's like the corporate world is also a huge stakeholder in that. So I'm also paying attention to whatever comes out of Microsoft, Amazon, the Goldman Sachs of the world, the BlackRocks, and they're putting out amazing content. So I'm getting a lot of that from corporates.
What do you envision the world of commercial real estate to look like in 10 years then, given that dealing in climate is inevitable? Either we tackle that issue or we're all going to die as a species. So there will be a shift there. But do you have any early visions or thoughts about where this industry is going to be in 10 years and new innovations, players that may get squeezed out? Any ideas at all?
I don't know.
Or what would your ideal vision look like if you could wave a magic wand? The industry has progressed to any future state in 10 years. What would that look like in the most idealistic world
That's
for
a
you?
great question. I'm so unqualified to answer it and uneducated, but I'll tell you what I know is going to happen is, right, if the real estate industry, this sort of secret that some of us are starting to realize, or other people before me, that we're contributing so much to carbon emissions and what have you. So the political world is now going to start to look and pay attention to real estate. The corporate world is going to start to demand that the industry responds accordingly and fast. And then your generation that's coming into the workplaces and saying, listen, I'm not going to work for this company in that building because, it's like people, that buy Patagonia clothing was like a fad maybe 5-10 years ago. Now there's not a clothing brand that's not trying to address, their impact in the environment. So I think it's a generational thing. It's a political thing. It's a business thing. I think it's going to force the industry to address. And I think what we're going to see is like what you're seeing in Paris. My friend Greg Lindsay, talks about the 15-minute city. I think we're, where you are in Atlanta, I think Atlanta's getting it. I think certain cities are going to emerge as the place where a lot of this great innovation takes place. And so I don't know exactly what the built world looks like, but I know that it'll look like, some very forward-thinking cities that are starting to be way on the forefront of addressing some of these issues, and they'll attract the right types of companies, the right types of people like you, like we were talking before, like you were talking about Atlanta. I think Atlanta's on the leading edge. Hopefully,
We'll see. I mean, half my network right now is in Miami, Austin, or Mexico. That might just be because it's cold outside, but I mean, I grew up in South Florida, so it's really interesting to see how from when I was 16, 18, when I got a license and a car and started, interacting with the Miami tech community until when I left for New York, how I did meet some of the early players and get into some of the early events as they were trying to build the Miami tech community. But it feels like they've still been building it, and now might be an inflection point. Maybe they become the next Austin or the next Denver, or maybe 6 months from now when we're post-COVID for the most part and it's warmer in New York and San Francisco, people go back. We'll see.
Yeah, I think again, I think what's going to be different this time is you're not going to be able to greenwash your commitment as a real estate company to sustainability and ESG. You can't just stick a logo on a website and say, poof, we're done, we're out of here, let's go on to the next. it's going to be air, water, walkability, green. It's not just going to be a green roof. It's going to have to be the entire footprint of the built world's got to be rethought. I think we're like not even in the first inning. I think we are like, we're just in the minor leagues right now. What's going to happen?
Yeah, I was going to ask what you think the biggest challenges are. It sounds like building materials themselves might be it, utilities, uh, even the impact that workspaces have regarding commutes and some of the byproducts of bringing people to a space versus decentralizing. What other challenges do you see that you're hoping CRETech community members start tackling or investing in?
I mean, it's so massive, Jared. I think that it's all the above plus probably 10, 20 other things we haven't thought about. Uh, you know, um, it's how buildings are built. It's how they're operated. It's how much energy they consume. It's where they're built. I think that's why I said in the beginning of our conversation, I think it's the most exciting time for the built environment in my career. I think over the next 5, 10, 15, 25 years, this will be the most extraordinary industry to be a part of. I'm also really, really encouraged by the amount of young people, your generation, that are now like, anxious to get involved and go to work. I can't tell you how many students, undergrads, are reaching out to me on LinkedIn and Twitter and other places saying, hey, how do we get involved? We want to make this our career. So I think it's a blank canvas, and I think the story's yet to be written, and I think it's going to be just an extraordinary time to be part of this kind of this change for the better for my kids' generation, for yours, and future generations to come. And I'm also, honestly, I'm very optimistic given the new political environment that we're taking this seriously now, because facts don't lie. And what's happening on a global warming front should terrify every single human on this planet. So facts don't lie.
Yeah, the opportunity part is interesting. I mean, I do see it, which is why I'm investing time and energy and money into the space with this new startup thing that I'll eventually talk about publicly.
Come on, man, I got to pull.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's waiting. I'm waiting for some renderings to show everyone.
All right. Well, I'm going to interview you when you're ready to go to the market.
Yeah,
all
let's
right.
do it. Okay. But I mean, a lot of people are looking at the pandemic as actually a massive threat to commercial real estate. And so it's interesting. I agree with you that there is a lot of opportunity, but there is certainly some naysayers, some people that think that we're going to lose 10, 20, 30% of office buildings, and that some of the, that world is going to shrink instead of grow. And so how would you answer some of those objections about reducing office space, or some major cities maybe losing people like New York to other places, in terms of the potential like negative consequences of the pandemic? How would you answer some of those objections that people have, whether they're investors in your community, or they're startups that are interested because they see opportunity but they're scared because they don't know how to manage the opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question, right? I think that, as I said earlier, we're entering a period where the entire real estate industry is being reimagined. So I think the rumors of New York's demise are greatly exaggerated. It's the greatest city in the world, and it'll just have to be reconfigured in a way, which is good, right? I think from an affordability point of view, from a congestion point of view, there's a lot of things that New York can do better. And then my wife keeps saying, the pandemic take away the horrific, the toll that's taken on lives and economies and businesses that have failed. There, you could look at it, and that's my Buddhist nature, and say, there are things that we can learn from it, and when we come through it, we'll be better as a result of having gone through it. So we're going to reset how we work. I mean, the fact that I'm not commuting to New York every day into Penn Station is a good thing. It's a good thing for, my quality of life. And so, but I will go to New York at some point. So maybe it's just a different type of New York and where I go from schlepping from one part of the city to the other part of the city. Maybe it's just going to be more condensed, and it'll be, again, live, work, play in a more condensed radius. I just think that the entire nature of work and living and retail and hotel is going to be reconfigured. So, but I think there'll always be real estate. We're not going to go, into space yet. But so what do we do in those structures? What do they look like? I mean, I'm very excited because if you look at the big landlords that are out there, RXR, Jamestown, Oxford, Hines on the office side, I mean, they're reimagining the whole experience, and they've leaned into this thing big time. If you look at like companies like Prologis, largest logistics company in the world, I mean, the amount of money that they're spending on tech and innovation is extraordinary. It's accelerating. If you look at like what's happening on the multifamily side with companies like Avalon or Essex or UDR or Mill Creek, I mean, the entire experience of renting an apartment, leasing an apartment is completely been reconfigured. It's much, much more efficient, requires less, human impact as well, which is a good thing, right? I'm not trying to talk about the loss of jobs. They'll be hopefully reallocated to other areas and that people are investing in, but it's getting better. So, like we were talking before about when you were sharing with me, like what's going on in Atlanta, which you should talk about a little bit. It's exciting, right? You got Google moving in, you got other companies coming in. I think it's a good thing. It's innovation, it's progress.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's Midtown Union Atlanta. If you Google that, that's sort of the city block that's being built right by my office and my condo. But yeah, it's multi-use buildings, it's office and living and retail all in one city block. There's, green spaces on roofs and walkways, and it's where we should be going. It doesn't seem too futuristic. It seems like it's right. It's like the top 10% of projects out there right now, but I think you'll see more and more of that, and that'll become increasingly the norm. But this is why I'm talking to you, because those 8 or 10 companies you named, I don't know any of them, and so that's
Well,
why I wanted to
that.
reconnect with you and learn from you.
Yeah, great. Right back at you.
On the events front, I'm interested in that as well from the meeting of the mind standpoint. We've gone a year now without doing any in-person quarterly summits, which was basically our business before, and now we're resuming in-person summits in Q2, hopefully in a safe way. We've now added the virtual components. So CRETech is all about reimagining real estate. How are you reimagining events when you go back to in-person? Because I know you're doing CRETech Plus and moving things digitally, but you'll still have in-person events, I imagine. They'll just be different. But how are you thinking they will be different, and what's your game plan if you guys have decided yet?
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, my team, I think, is far more competent and educated as to how to remake the events. And I don't come from, I've been in this industry for a few years. There's other companies that I think are doing far, more exciting in other industries. I think in our industry, I believe, obviously, but I would, be self-critical that we are the best at what we do. In terms of real estate tech conferences. And I think it's because we just continue to listen to the audience and we pay attention. The thing about moving to virtual with the conferences is, it made us also get better because we could look at the data, which we couldn't before. You walk into a place like the Navy Yards in Brooklyn that we did last year, what are we doing? We're eyeballing. You're walking into a room, a physical setting, and you're going, that looks full, that's not full, there's no buzz, there's no energy. Like it's really tangible what you were looking for. Now we pivot, we go virtual, we get data, we get information. So here's what I believe, that the conference industry will be a hybrid industry. We will have physical events and we will have virtual events, and they will both be different from what we did in 2020. So I think on the physical events, which we're coming back this year in the fall with 2 events, one New York, one London, or one London, one New York. these will have to be very purposeful events. No longer are people going to fly and just show up for a conference because they're looking to get out of the office for a few days, perhaps. So you're going to have purpose. They're going to have to network. There's going to have to be an ROI. They're going to have to do business. They're going to have to transact. So that's how we're kind of reimagining our conferences. Is like people got to walk away from that event and that experience saying, yep, that was a 10x return on the investment that I made. And then on the virtual, again, I think it's got to be condensed. It's got to be really incredible content. I think that's what people are looking for. Like they'll pay attention to a virtual conference, like we're doing one coming up this week, whenever this appears, but whatever it'll be after the fact, or on data. And we got a great turnout because it's very specific. It's not just BS generic, talk about technology and it's like very specific. So I think we'll just be a hybrid. And then I think again, there'll also be a place for small curated conferences, meetups. I think that is going to be as important as ever. I think I got away from doing small meetups years ago because I just felt, oh my gosh, it's so much work. Why do 15 of these things when we could do 2 and they'll just be bigger? I think the pendulum's going to swing back. I think people want to go to small, intimate, highly curated events where they connect with like-minded people and they get great content as well.
Thank you. I appreciate the winks.
Jared, what say you?
Yeah.
What do you think? What are your
I'd be
thoughts?
curious to hear what you think leads to value for the in-person events. I agree that intimacy, if properly curated, can lead to tremendous value. I agree that making your agendas very intentional and purpose-driven leads to a lot of value. For me, that means reducing, if not cutting out, speakers altogether for in-person events, which is maybe a contrarian idea. I do think that is a great place for your digital events, especially if they're very focused, because the challenge with going digital and being speaker or content driven is that we have YouTube, we have Google, one tab away. And so how are you going to get people to attend, whether it's free or paid, and pay attention? Because even if you pay, you still got to pay attention after you pay. But for the in-person events, that's been my strategy since we started meeting in the mines in 2018, was like very few speakers, if any, very attendee driven, intimate, unique shared experiences, so that you have trust and intimacy built among attendees before you start leveraging that collective intelligence to solve everyone's pressing business problems, or try and exchange referrals, or create partnerships, things like that. But I'm always open to anything else that would lead to more value for in-person events. And so, anything else that you guys are thinking of trying out in your in-person events to catalyze more value?
I think it's more like you said. I think it's exactly what you said. More purposeful meetings, connections, less formality, more networking. I think that's where we're going, in my opinion. I think bigger is not better. I think better is better.
I like the focus around being very specific on the topics too. If you want to do an event on data, do an event on data in commercial real estate, as opposed to CRETech.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll launch a series of events focused on climate in 2021, which I'll be super excited about as well. And again, that for me feels like the difference between climate and what I did on and are doing on CRETech is we've got a great sense of urgency, right? Because climate's not waiting for us. So we'll push hard into that this year as well. Some conferences, some webinars, and just trying to build this community as fast as I can for real estate. Again, for real estate.
For for the people that are coming from more of a meeting in the minds or my personal network in terms of their background and just learning about you for the first time, how can they get involved? What's the best way for them to dip their toes into, CRETech and all the work you're doing? Maybe, some of them may have interest in real estate on the personal side. Maybe they're starting to think about the business side of real estate from everything that we've discussed. What's the best way for them to get involved with you?
Well, here we go. Here we go. We open it up now. Just email me, Michael, Michael at CRETech.com, CRETech. And let's go. Let's have a conversation. Let's figure out, first and foremost, how I can help. And then let's figure out, what other connection points I can make for you and broadcast whatever you're doing, connecting you to like-minded professionals. Let's build this community as fast as we can. So doors open. And of course, follow the site, CRETech.com. But, I'm accessible and available. And as you hopefully can tell, deeply passionate about this.
Are there specific webinars or online events coming up that you think are better introductory experiences or more general as opposed to like the Business Intelligence Virtual Summit or some of the more data driven ones that you do?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're doing a couple, like the CRETech Match is a networking between venture and startups. I think that's a great one. Hugely successful because we've done a couple in the past. And we got other events we'll announce throughout the spring and summer and into the fall. We've got webinars, but I try and be pretty thoughtful about the webinars because it's just so much junk out there and it's so much noise. So if I put something out, it's because I believe in it. And I think just pay attention to the content calendar and check out CRETech Plus. I mean, we're doing all we can not to be a nonprofit, but it's pretty inexpensive, and there's just a ton of great videos in there. And we, as I said, we make it pretty affordable, but it's an easy way to digest, and it's a great. It's been built fantastically by the team to be really easy to consume based on different topics. So pretty excited about that. But yeah, just wake up every day and just put my big boy pants on and go at it.
I'll make sure that we have some links,
All right,
close to this video so that people can check it out. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thanks for all you're doing for our industry. Super excited that you're casting your eyes on real estate and tech, and I'm thrilled about what you've got coming. And please reach back out so I can return the favor and pay it forward and help.
Absolutely. Early February, we can broadcast that.
Good seeing you.
Thank you.
Be safe. Be healthy.